Welcome to Unfinished Conversations, where turning silence into strength happens one voice at a time. Here is your host, Rebecca Lombardo.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Unfinished Conversations. I'm Rebecca Lombardo, the host, and today I am conversing with the lovely Kitt O'Malley, everyone's favorite advocate. It's so good to have you here today, Kitt. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm
Absolutely.
thrilled.
Absolutely. So, for listeners who may not have met you yet, can you talk a little bit about yourself and the work that you do and just everything that we might need to know?
Sure. I'm Kitt O'Malley. I live with bipolar. I'm a mental health advocate. I'm a former psychotherapist in my 20s. I was a psychotherapist, and I've had many different careers. I'm a mom of a young man who was a high needs kid with multiple diagnoses and to deal with. So I know like have the perspective of, whoops, sorry about that,
Mhm.
perspective of a mom, of a therapist, and of somebody with a lived experience.
Mhm.
In fact, my lived experience started when I was 18.
Mhm.
And I wasn't diagnosed until I was 39. I mean, I had different diagnoses like
Mhm.
depression and then, oh, what do you know, bipolar. And so I had been doing a lot of volunteer work recently with my local NAMI chapter, NAMI Central Oregon, and I just recently burned out. You know how
Mhm.
it is when you have a lived experience. Sometimes you just need to take a break.
Right.
So I'm actually taking a break right now. So this
Oh, good.
is, it's nice to do something during my break.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And didn't he just graduate recently? I thought I saw a picture
He
online.
did. He
Mm-hmm.
just got his master's from UC San
Masters.
Diego
Wow.
in computer science with honors. I'm so proud of him because
Mm-hmm.
high school was a wash. He basically spent most of high school in bed, depressed with migraines and really severe migraines,
Mm-hmm.
and ended up taking the GED. So that he's gotten this far, given, how hard it was growing up. I'm thrilled. I'm really
Yeah,
thrilled.
absolutely. I would be too. That's wonderful. Tell him congratulations.
Thank you. Will
Oh,
do.
and I should mention I've had this cough from acid reflux, and I'm
Oh,
trying desperately to hold it back. So if it happens, I apologize.
oh, yeah, I have that too. I take medication every day for it.
Yeah, me too. So it's fun. So you mentioned that you wanted to talk about balancing bipolar disorder with family work and volunteering. What does that balancing act look like for you, look like in your life?
Well, really, sometimes it looks like there are basically chapters or seasons to your life. You can't necessarily do everything all the time.
Hmm.
Like I tried to work, with my husband, raise a high needs child, and take care of my own bipolar diagnosis. And I ended up hospitalized because
Hmm.
I couldn't do everything, right?
Hmm.
And so I ended up staying home on disability. I've been home ever since. I haven't done any paid work. I've done volunteer work, a lot of volunteer work, I guess, because part of me felt like I owed it to the world to do volunteer work if I wasn't getting paid or if I
Hmm.
was receiving disability.
Right.
But the volunteer work is easier to pace in
Hmm.
general. In general, if you don't get too sucked in, than a paid job that expects you to be there every day at certain
Right.
hours. And it seemed like every job I ever had, because of my diagnosis, I turned out to be a workaholic. I'm a workaholic,
Hmm.
basically. So it's kind
Hmm.
of hard for me to turn it off.
Yeah.
Um, and that's what ended up happening with my volunteering too. I was just spending too much time volunteering and I needed to put the brakes on it because sometimes I'm just not able to balance
Hmm.
it because of who I am
Yeah.
and my personality and how I'm kind of a type A workaholic type person.
Hmm.
So balance sometimes looks at taking a look and stepping back and going, maybe I can't do it all.
Right. And it's funny because it's not always us that recognizes that within ourselves. It's sort of everybody else around us that's kind of like, whoa,
Yeah,
what you doing?
yeah,
It's
exactly.
Joe for me that's recognizing that a lot right now. I'm doing a lot, and he's constantly trying to slow me down.
Yes, that's why it's really, I think, really great to have a supportive partner
Hmm.
who communicates with you in a supportive way to
Hmm.
let you know, hey, this is like my husband's like, you don't even have enough time to listen to me when I have a question because you're so focused on what you
Hmm.
were doing as a volunteer. I was like hyper focused and not even, like, so he's like, you don't even have time to answer a question. Like, this is like when I ended up, you know, quitting volunteering for now. I mean, I'm not completely out of the picture, but I mean, I am, but
Hmm.
I still consider myself like, okay, I might go back because I am trained in so many NAMI programs
Hmm.
and trained also in teaching in our own voice, which is the storytelling program, which I'm a
Yeah, I've heard of
big
that.
advocate of.
Hmm.
Yeah, so for Oregon, that's one of the things I'm trained to do. And I'm looking forward to once I'm kind of recovered and the
Hmm.
summer's gone by and I have all this stuff with my son, we're going to visit him again and all that kind of stuff. Um, that I'll have the energy to do that again.
Hmm. I recently stepped back from everything for about 3 weeks myself and just kind of, and it was hard because I'm like I feel like it's that should word that I keep telling everybody that should not be in our vocabulary at all. It's
Right.
I should be doing this, I should be doing that. Why am I not doing this? And I was shooting myself to death just on everything that I wanted to accomplish. So
Right.
I eventually just needed to step back and just stop doing everything for a little
Right.
while,
And I
because
think
that's what I was doing was everything.
Yeah, and I think that's important for people even without a bipolar
Hmm.
diagnosis. I mean, there are, because we do have these like, especially with work-oriented things, we're in a culture where working is so highly valued,
Hmm.
overvalued, and so it's really hard to just value just being,
Hmm.
just living, just and taking care of yourself and taking care of your loved ones. Like understanding that when you're spending too much time doing one thing, you don't have enough energy or time to do like to love your spouse.
Hmm. Right.
You know what I mean? To spend time with your dog or
Hmm.
or whatever. So I think not just those of us who have bipolar disorder, but anybody that's true for, you really have to make sure, we can't do it all the time. We have to,
Hmm.
you have to be cognizant of how much time you're spending doing versus this versus that. And then those of us with bipolar are sometimes famous for overworking,
Hmm.
I mean, and a lot of very high achievers have bipolar disorder because it fuels that
Right.
work ethic and that creativity that we have, that we have like almost this urge that we have to do,
Hmm.
we have to create.
Absolutely.
So and we have these emotions that we have to like put into something, and so
Hmm.
sometimes I go with it and I go, I know I'm overdoing it, but I just can't help myself.
Right. Yeah, I was just
And
saying, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead, Rebecca.
I was just saying the other night I was frustrated and upset about something, and I literally came out and said I feel like working. I need to work on something right now. And it sounded strange, even in my own ears. It sounded bizarre, but it was something that I just felt like I needed to do. And so I went and I got my calendar and my binder and my notebook, and I just laid it all out on the bed and sat there and stared at it until I figured out what I needed to work on. And then I was like, okay, I'm all right now.
And
You
and then
know?
it's a relief, right? Because when you have that, like there are times when it's building up, like all your ideas and your anxiety about getting those ideas. If you're able to do like have the tools, which you have, of having a binder and all
Mm-hmm.
that kind of stuff. If you have the tools to be able to organize that, then it's like a relief.
Hmm.
So those are, it's important to have those tools, which you have, so that
Hmm.
you are able to go, okay, well, so what, I use my calendar a lot. You know what I mean? My
Yeah.
my Google calendar. And
Hmm.
I will actually move things. Okay, I wasn't able to do it today, so how about tomorrow?
Hmm.
Like with tasks or something. How about, the next day or next week? I don't have to do it like, because there's certain things you don't that aren't really deadline oriented, and there's
Right.
other things that are deadline oriented.
They're just
I
those you
have to
want to
go to
do
my
them.
doctor,
Hmm. Yeah.
certain things. So yeah, that's yeah. So I use same thing. I use there's it's good to have tools to
Yeah.
be able to organize yourself.
And I'm nuts about that kind of stuff too. I've got all these certain binders and all these, I've got so many notebooks and because, well, you're an author too. I don't write so much on the computer as I do with a pen and paper. I'm
Oh,
just kind of old fashioned that way. You get me a good pen and a good notebook and I'm fine for hours.
oh,
I love a good pen. Like I have these. Yeah, they're, no, no, I guess not. Anyway,
different colors.
yeah, they're erasable gel pens, and I just discovered them, and I have a pen cup next to me on the bed all the time now because I just am obsessed with them. And they've got all different colors from brown to all the way to yellow, and I'm going yellow.
Yeah, when I used to work at a battered women's shelter, they call it domestic violence shelters now. Back
Hmm.
when I was in my 20s, I was an administrative coordinator that was like my first job in this field. And before I went to grad school, and as a therapist,
Hmm.
and the executive director would buy notepads, legal pads, well,
Hmm.
the letter size, pads
Right.
in different colors,
Oh yeah.
like purple or
Those are the
pink.
best.
And she would use these pens, which are
Hmm.
just the uniballs,
Yep.
in different colors.
Hmm.
And so, because it cheered her up, so I was just like, color is a really big deal in terms of cheering you up. And also, you can use it as an organizational tool too. I've
Right.
used it as an organizational tool as well.
Hmm. Absolutely. So it's fun and I love it and it's funny because Joe and I were talking one day about different things that we were just playing about different things that bug one another and he said something strange. I can't remember what it was, but I said, it's funny. I thought you were going to say something about too many notebooks. And he's like, no, you know what? The notebooks don't really bother me. And was floored by that because there's notebooks everywhere, and I'll see them on Amazon and I know I've got 12 of them, but these notebooks are beautiful. I'm going to buy two more.
Right. Yeah. It's like, oh, sorry, my my background's being attacked by my dog. Let me just
Oh,
make it
okay.
so she can go in and out.
Okay.
She won't let do that. There we go. She's coming in and going, I can't see the whole thing coming down. There you go. You can come and go from both sides now.
What kind of
Here.
dog is it?
She's a poodle.
Oh,
Yeah. You want to be seen? You want attention? There you go, sweetie.
what's her
Yeah,
name?
her name's Pepper. Oh,
Aw.
here. Yeah, get up, 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 up. There you go, sweetie. There you go, pretty girl. Pretty girl.
Oh, hi,
Yeah,
baby.
pretty girl. She's what's called a phantom coloring.
Oh,
Oops, wait, here we go, sweetie. Good girl. Sorry about that.
that's okay. So,
So yeah.
you wrote my mental health came first. Was that an easy thing for you to put together, or did it take time? Was it exhausting?
Well, my book that I wrote is called Balancing Act: Writing Through a Bipolar Life,
Okay.
and it grew from my blog.
Right.
So I was blogging and interacting with people. I haven't done that in a while.
Mm-hmm.
I sort of became after with COVID. My mother died right before COVID, and I sort of like cocooned with the family. And
Mm-hmm.
then we moved up to Oregon from Southern California, and then I became very active with my local NAMI, which is I'm in a rural area, so it was I just became very hyper focused on local rather than the
Hmm.
bigger stuff I was doing. The book I wrote before COVID, and what I did was I took my blog posts and I organized them by uh, theme,
Hmm.
with the themes being, my mental health journey, caretaking of my son and my parents. Both my parents had dementia at the end of their
Oh,
lives, and mental health advocacy. And then I took the posts and they were organized within those three content areas. And I spent a lot of time and effort and money on marketing it. And I finally just decided it's not making money. I'm spending more money on marketing. So I'll just leave it.
yeah.
It's there. If people want to buy it, they can, they do, but it's hardly an income maker.
Hmm.
See, I mean, there's a bigger market that sells to writers than there is a market for
Writers
buying
to sell.
writers. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Hmm.
So it's just like there's a lot of people out there making money off writers, and more so than the writers are able to make.
Hmm.
And unfortunately. And but I just felt like I needed to collect everything in one place,
Hmm.
because otherwise it sort of gets lost. I mean, I could be reposting things now, and I probably
Yeah.
will at some point start
Hmm.
reposting some of the old content, because it's still, valid
Right,
today.
right.
Um, so anyway, what got me to write it was I sort of was started blogging when my son was in high school, and I just felt that I had to write. And I
Hmm.
always sort of years, decades before I ever did that, I saw myself as having a URL with my name, kittomalley.com, and writing, putting my writing. I didn't see it as blogging because blogging wasn't a thing yet, but I saw myself putting my writing on my website and having people able to access my writing. And so I always saw that as something I'd want to do in the future,
Hmm.
because I was a very computer literate type person,
You
and
were or
did
you
website.
weren't? You were. Oh, you
I
were.
was,
Okay.
I did website design and stuff, not as my primary job, but I would go and work for a company. I'm like, oh, you need a website. Let me design one. And once you get a real person to do it, they can redesign it, but you need something. You
Mm-hmm.
need something. And so I did that for a number of companies I worked for. And back in the 90s, and when it was just sort of starting to companies were just like if a company now it's unheard of for a company not to have a website.
Right, right.
So, but I was just like, you need a website. Everybody needs a website. so, and you can always change it, but you need something out there that looks clean, and I'll just
Hmm.
make you something clean and simple, and
Hmm.
So I used to do like newsletters. Like I started with the battered woman shelter doing newsletters and business cards and all that kind of stuff. So I was already doing graphic design and stuff like that. So as part of, like, that wasn't my primary job. My job was administrative coordinator, but then I'm like, oh, I can do that. I can do that.
Hmm.
So, which is which is one of the problems that
Yeah.
I have, is that I'm like, always, I can do that. And
Yeah.
I take on more and more and more things that
Hmm.
are outside necessarily your job description. But I'm like, oh, I can do that.
And do you ever find that you get caught up in like a manic kind of thing where you think, maybe you can do even more? Do you experience mania like that?
I do what I do. It's more at this point in time, because I'm well controlled with medication. What I get is more of a hypomania,
Hmm.
or just where I get overstimulated, and then the overstimulation gets me to start taking on more and more and more.
Hmm.
And I have to, and then there's always a rebound, right? Which is like
Hmm.
exhaustion,
Right.
because that only lasts so long,
Hmm.
and then you become exhausted. So, and that's why actually volunteering worked for me, because of my jobs back when I was younger, in my 20s. What would happen is I'd soar, in terms of go from one thing to like up and then crash and then soar and then crash,
Yeah.
So I had that history of soaring and crashing, but it still wasn't seen as bipolar. It was just seen that I was a high achiever,
Mm.
even though I would tell, at that time, bipolar 2 wasn't in the DSM
Hmm.
back when I was in my 20s. I'm 62 right now, almost 63. And so unless you were full-blown manic, they didn't see you as bipolar. And I was high, quote unquote, high functioning.
Right.
And then I did have a manic episode when I was 30, and that was what they saw as what's called iatrogenic, which means caused by medication, because my depression at that point got so severe that I went to a doctor and then a psychiatrist for medication, and I had several medication changes, and finally was on a medication that triggered mania.
Oh.
And so nowadays, if that happens, a doctor would think, oh, you're bipolar. But back then, the psychiatrist that I saw said, okay, so what, like asked my history before that medication, like what my history was. And I'm like, well, I was an overachiever. I did too much and I would crash, and he's like, yeah, that doesn't really fit the bipolar. We really are looking at, he said, has anybody ever suggested, because I'd been in therapy since I was 18. He's like, has anybody ever suggested that you go on lithium? And I said, no, but if you want to put me on lithium, I'm okay with that. Like,
Mhm.
if you see me as bipolar, to do it. And he said, no, that's okay. If nobody's ever recommended that, and you've been in therapy since you're 18, and you held jobs, and you graduated from college, and you got a master's degree, and you did all this thing when you were in your 20s, we don't that doesn't fit the current diagnostic criteria.
Mhm.
So it wasn't until I was 39. So they, changed my medications, got me off that antidepressant, and put me on a different antidepressant,
Mhm.
very slowly titrated me up, because as I was on the dose, I would start getting racing thoughts, and I'd call the psychiatrist. I'm like, I'm getting racing thoughts. And he's like, okay, let's slow it down. So we titrated very slowly.
Mhm.
I was very sensitive to antidepressants. And then I was stable on an antidepressant throughout my, more or less throughout
Mhm.
my 20s, and then 30s. Sorry, that's 30s.
Mhm.
So just therapy only, 20s, 30 manic episode from antidepressant, and then stable antidepressant through my 30s until I was 39. And I was postpartum, nursing my son. And I started to have euphoric thoughts
Mm.
and the thoughts itself were okay, and the behavior was okay, but the euphoria that went with it, I recognized as being manic, or
Yeah.
hypomanic really.
Mhm.
But it was like I thought that God was calling me to one church for spiritual direction and to another church for Bible study. And I was going to one church for spiritual direction because I felt God was calling me into the other one for Bible study. And there was nothing wrong with going to the Bible study or the spiritual direction. They were very good things to do. But that
Mhm.
euphoria that I was feeling was not.
Yeah.
So even if God was calling me to do those things, that euphoria was not okay.
Right.
So I called a nurse, the advice nurse on my insurance card, and I asked my husband to get on the phone so he could hear what was going on,
Mhm.
because people can't see what's going on in your head, and you have to explain it to them, and you have to have, I wanted him to understand. So I told the advice nurse what was going on, and she said, see a psychiatrist or go to the emergency room now.
Mhm.
So I got in. I wasn't able to see a psychiatrist. It was a Friday afternoon. I didn't want to go to the emergency room because I knew that they would hospitalize me, and I
Right.
didn't want that. I just wanted medicine. So I went to my regular doctor. They prescribed me a Depakote and said, you can't nurse anymore. So I abruptly weaned my son, and I uh, scheduled to see a psychiatrist the following week. Like she said, I won't see you for this, but for the weekend, because at the time, I will give you this medication, and you have to promise me you're going to see a psychiatrist.
Mm.
And so I saw a psychiatrist on the following Monday. that weekend, I have a little story, a little vignette that's very
Mhm.
sweet, shows how
Okay.
supportive my husband was. My son had never been a night without me and nursed, right? So he was old. I nursed kind of hippie-ish. I didn't mean to be hippie-ish, but that's just how it ended up. So he was 27 months, and my husband sat with my son outside by the driveway because my son thought I was going to come back and refused to go back inside. He wanted to wait for me.
Oh.
And then it started to rain, so he talked my son into going underneath the eave and sitting on the doorway rather than
Mhm.
near the driveway. And then he's like, well, why don't we go up the stairs and keep the door open, but we'll go up the stairs and go up to the top of the stairs and watch the door. And then he's like, well, we can still see the stairs from the master bedroom. Why don't you come in and sit down with me in bed, and then we'll watch the door until he fell asleep.
Oh.
And so that's just that he did that is just so sweet that he
Mhm.
um he's a nice guy.
Yeah. I've got one of
Yeah.
those too.
Yeah. So I'm really lucky to have somebody very caring and who is very caring and gentle with our son.
Mhm.
Yeah. So our son got an easy weaning by being with daddy
Oh,
that
that's
that
good.
weekend. Yeah, I
That's
went
very
with
good.
and just hung out with I went to my parents' house to be able to just be away from him because I knew otherwise it was going to be too hard.
Mhm.
I needed to do some abrupt weaning, and so I just left him for the weekend with the dad, with my husband.
And what happened when you told him that story when he was older? Anything?
Um, I think he knows he's really lucky that he has parents who were very gentle and understanding, especially with he had ADHD and depression and anxiety and migraines. And
Hmm.
we didn't like I'm not saying we were perfect parents. I've had instances where I wasn't the best mom,
Hmm.
but we were very gentle with him. Like
Hmm.
we understood that he wasn't able to do things that other kids were able to do,
Right.
and we didn't push him to do it.
Hmm.
We would try different things to try to see what would work, and it just migraines and depression sometimes are just chronic, and you
They
just
are.
even if
They're
he's
so
seeing a
horrible.
child neurologist and he's seeing a child psychiatrist, he still has those things.
Hmm.
And for pediatric migraines, they don't. There's only like at the time there was only Elavil was approved for treatment, so he wasn't able to get anything that was really effective treatment
Yeah.
because of what was FDA approved for pediatric patients.
Hmm.
So once he got older and became 18, then he could take different medications, and that was much better.
That's good. That's very good. How has living with bipolar disorder affected your roles with the people closest to you?
Um, that's a good question. I think in some ways, first of all, I'm going to say, and this is just, um, I think that it's really important to treat mental illness. Like I have an obligation, not just to take care of myself, but because my behavior when I'm symptomatic affects those I love,
Hmm.
I have an additional obligation to be treated. And that's my opinion. But I think that like people only think sometimes of their own particular own rights, or what they particularly want or don't want. And it's like, it's not just me.
Hmm.
It just,
Right.
I affect those people around me. My behavior affects those people around me. And because of that, I have to, like there were times when my son was acting out when he was young, when I reacted in a way that was not okay.
Hmm.
And I had to make sure that I dealt with that with the psychiatrist, so that I was a good mom. So, I didn't want to be a symptomatic mom.
Right.
So I wanted to be the best mom possible. That was really, in fact, that was like my theme, like that everybody when I was voluntarily hospitalized when he was 4.
Hmm.
Um, I was having like a mixed episode in rapid cycling, and I
Hmm.
just wanted to get it, you know, taken care of.
Right.
And that was like the theme for me,
Right.
was in fact, they even called me an insecure mom, which
Hmm.
I don't like that. I wasn't
Yeah.
necessarily insecure, but I knew that I had a mental illness. And well, in fact, when I was diagnosed bipolar, this is tragic. This is self-stigma.
Mm-hmm.
I was that day, I was that right after I was diagnosed bipolar. Um, Even though I was the same person, I thought, oh, I have bipolar disorder. I am now a dangerous mother. And I put my son in daycare and went back to work. I'd been a stay-at-home mom at that
Oh.
point. And and that's just so painful to think that I thought, even though I was the same person
Mm-hmm.
with the depression, diagnosis and the bipolar diagnosis, I was the same person.
Mm-hmm.
I was just getting better medication, so more effective medication. But my internalized stigma about what having bipolar disorder meant
Mm-hmm.
and what mothering with bipolar disorder meant,
Right.
I had this stigma, meaning that, and it was partly because of my clinical training,
Mm-hmm.
which is terrible,
Yeah.
terrible, that I thought that a bipolar mother is that my son was not safe in my care and I needed to put him in daycare and go back to work.
Mm. Now let me ask you, just because you had mentioned it, did you ever get on lithium?
I did. I did do a trial of lithium. I've been on trials of different drugs, but I've been most effective on anti-seizure medication. And now I take an antipsychotic to help me sleep, sort of off-label, low
Yeah.
dose. And
What
I
did you
take a
think?
little bit. Go ahead.
What did you think of lithium? Because I
I
took it
was like,
too.
I'm like, for me, it was fine. It was like just what works best, and it
Hmm.
wasn't working best. And I think that part of me thinks, oh, it's cool. It's an element, right? If you can use it effectively and it doesn't, your all your labs are good, right? If
Hmm.
your labs are good and you can take this medication, you're not overpaying for it. Let's just
Hmm.
put it that way,
Yeah.
right? So I liked that idea, but it just wasn't the medication for me. I didn't, it just, and the medication that I ended up taking did have the medications that I did end up taking at the beginning. First, I took an antipsychotic to
Hmm.
to stop that manic euphoria, that
Hmm.
hypomanic euphoria, and that antipsychotic made me gain a lot of weight.
Yes.
And then the anti-seizure medication that I was put on made me gain weight and didn't, and my appetite, I was always hungry,
Yeah.
right? And so now, after years, I mean, I went up to 196 from like starting off at 135.
Hmm.
And right now I'm taking, one of those weight loss medications.
Are you?
Yeah. And it's helped. I mean, I'm still, they want me to lose more weight, but I'm healthy weight, right?
Hmm.
I'm not obese anymore.
Hmm.
I'm just a little bit overweight. I'm like, all
Right.
my labs are good. And so I'm just happy because when you start seeing like your liver panel going a little bit, and your doctor saying all you need to do is lose 15 pounds and your liver panel will be back to normal. Like just
Uh,
that's all. And so yeah, it's nice because I'm my appetite is normal.
oh, good.
It's not,
Good.
so it's kind of reset my appetite. I've been on it long term. I didn't do the fast lose, you know what I mean? It's been
Hmm.
like a slow and steady loss, and I'm working out with a trainer. So,
Oh, that's
um,
good.
yeah, because there's always a risk of losing muscle mass. And in fact, I
Hmm.
have lost some muscle mass. I have to be better about eating protein and complex
Right.
carbs
Yeah.
because it's otherwise you start eating yourself. It's not good.
So, what do you wish people better understood about bipolar disorder?
That I think that the main thing is that it's treatable and that people can and that we have this. I think it's getting better now because we have so many well-known people who are out with their
Hmm.
diagnoses,
Hmm.
who are very successful people. But I think that there's still a stigma and still this idea of what somebody with bipolar looks like or acts like.
Yes.
And that's why I liked to speak, because with somebody, yeah, I'm like upper middle class, luckily, because I was married and had my family when I was younger and had my breakdown. I had my family to go to,
Hmm.
and then I married. So if it wasn't for that, I probably would be, I'd be, it would be horrible. I mean, I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
Disability is not enough to live on.
Right.
But luckily, I've had family support to enable me to live, you know, a decent suburban lifestyle.
Hmm.
And now
Good.
I'm up in the woods. Yay. So, yeah, so I'm lucky that
Hmm.
I've had family to support me, not just emotionally, but financially, So,
Right.
yeah.
Okay. So, um, what kind of when you're feeling it is like how I like to say it. I'm feeling it is what I tell Joe. And so when you're feeling it, what kind of support really helps you?
A lot depends on whether I'm up or down, And as I've grown older, been, I'm really careful about triggers to over what I call now being overwhelmed. I don't really call it
Hmm.
hypomania and stuff
Right.
anymore. I
Right.
call it being overwhelmed and being, that kind of, and so I'm very careful about the things that trigger hypomania, and I'm very careful that I allow myself to rest. What might look like depression, I reframe as recuperation.
Hmm.
Because when you become overstimulated, when I become, I should say because everybody's different.
Right.
When I become overstimulated and start, or like what I was doing, like I was working so hard, and I did it for a long time. I was spending at least 20 hours a week, probably more, volunteering. And it just finally got to the point where I got angry about
Mm.
something. And I'm like, okay, this is really, I kind of took a step back and I said, you know what? This is really about that I'm burned out. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? This is really that I need to take a break,
Yeah.
that I so needed validation, which I
Mm.
get thanks all the time, that I
Hmm.
so needed validation in this particular instance where I just didn't get it. It wasn't that I was like snubbed or anything. I just like, I expected something I didn't get. And it was just a
Right.
little, and I was like, I really need to take a break.
Hmm.
And I don't want to destroy these relationships, but I really need to just back off and recuperate. So and I kind of feel bad because Nick, my husband's does tons of work around here in terms of actually painting and the house
Right.
and all that kind of stuff. He's like Mr. Do It, DIY, Mr. DIY. And like all I'm doing is watching the dog. So so I'm playing catch with the dog and taking the dog on walks, and I'm not really doing anything. And part of me feels guilty. I mean, I might cook dinner occasionally because I cook well,
Hmm.
and I try to cook a lot so we have leftovers. So I don't have to cook every night. And and but it's nothing near the number of hours that he's putting in.
Right.
I mean, it just doesn't even compare.
Hmm.
And because he's a little gerbil, he's got his own thing going on.
Yeah.
And so I do feel guilty
Hmm.
that I have to, like, even that I still say, oh, I'm recuperating or whatever. Like, I don't need to say that to my husband. He knows, you know what I mean? And like,
Hmm.
but I still feel like I need to give excuses.
Yeah. I
And
understand that.
I don't. I
Hmm.
don't. I really don't owe anybody any explanation or excuse, but I feel guilty that I'm
Yeah.
not productive.
You're not shitting.
Yeah, I'm not shoulding. Exactly. Exactly. That is
Yeah.
exactly it. Yes.
Yeah.
When, hey, I have a serious mental illness. And if
Hmm.
that means that I need to recuperate for a few months, I need to recuperate for a few months. That's
Right.
okay.
It's hard. It's so hard. I go through that same thing, and it's just, and I would never say anything negative about my parents because I adored them, but my mom was one of those that she just didn't like people just laying around, and
Yeah.
she would let you know about it.
Yep.
But I was still young enough that the diagnosis hadn't really kicked in for everybody. They didn't really understand it yet, and because I was 19 as well. Um, and they didn't get what was going on, and what the outcome was going to be, and why I was taking this or that or whatever. And um she would, you know, be up with laundry or, cooking or doing this, that, and the other thing, and she didn't understand why nobody else was doing anything.
Right. Yeah.
And I just grew up with kind of a culture of guilt. So, if it wasn't for that, I think I would still be feeling guilty. Just because I see my husband doing all these things and I'm not doing anything except maybe, taking notes for, something or another, but I'm not doing nearly what he's doing. But I've got my own guilt, and then I've got in the back of my mind my mom's guilt.
Right. Right.
you know.
Right. Right. Oh,
So it's
totally.
it's hard to overcome them both, let alone, just one.
Yes. I was the the eldest. Well, there's just two of us.
Hmm.
But I was the older sister and I was a straight A student. So I was always told, and like when I was 5, I said I wanted to be a nurse. And my dad said, no, you don't want to be a nurse. You want to be a doctor. Nurses do all the work and they don't get paid. So from then on, I was introduced to everybody as, from
Doc,
5 years old
doctor.
on, Kitt, she's going to go to Harvard Medical School and become a doctor. That was my expectation. That was the expectation of me. My sister, even though she was gifted, didn't have the same expectations. I mean, she did have expectations, and both of us actually ended up workaholics, and both of our parents were basically type A, top of their class, all that kind of stuff in college and everything.
Mm-hmm.
We remember when we were doing my mom's memorial, and we were like, whoa,
Hmm.
she did a lot because their yearbook wasn't online yet. So, or her yearbook for her school wasn't online yet for college. So, and it was unusual for a woman even to go to college back then. And my sister contacted the school, and Seattle University was a Jesuit university or Catholic. And so they sent all the woman sent scanned all these photos of my mom and all these different clubs and different things she did. And she had told us that she did all these different things, but still it was more than we understood, you
Hmm.
know. And but our mother was always very proud of being a businesswoman before she became a stay-at-home mom. You know what I mean? Being, like, having a career and stuff like that, that thing that women didn't do.
Hmm.
And so yeah, so there was this culture that my sister and I grew up with that was this very high achieving workaholic culture,
Hmm.
that was what you do.
Right.
Not that even that there was any exception. That was like that was the expectation.
Hmm.
And our dad would bring home work every night. You know, he was an executive, and first he was an engineer and then he became an executive, and he brought home work every night. And he went to Harvard for grad school. So but he wanted to be a doctor. So now I was going to become the doctor. And if he went to Harvard, then I have to go to Harvard. You know what I mean? It was like, so this was like the power, like it was a lot of expectation. And then when I was 18 and decided, hmm, I was suicidal, at
Hmm.
18.
Yeah.
And I ended up quitting UCLA where I was going and took time off, like a semester off. And then I went to community college. And then I transferred up to Berkeley because I had to make something, if I wasn't going to be a doctor, oh, I'll study to be a lawyer. I mean, I didn't become a lawyer, but it was a legal studies major. I had to like fit some sort of expectation.
Right. Right.
Um, and yeah, it was really hard. I didn't even tell my parents I was depressed. I
Hmm.
didn't tell them. I felt like I was a failure.
Hmm. Absolutely.
I felt like that those symptoms meant that I was a failure,
Mm-hmm.
and I believed a lot of the negative self-talk
Yeah.
that you have when you're depressed. The world would be better off without me. My family would be better off without me. You know what I mean? My sister would be better off without me. All these things. In fact, I told my sister recently this, and she's like, oh gosh, even hearing that now is like she couldn't deal with it.
Yeah.
And I said, well, the point I'm making is depression lies.
Mm-hmm.
So, because she's had an adjacent suicide happen to like somebody close.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, it's not your fault. Because she was feeling like, is it my fault? What did I do? What did I say? And I said, it's not. Like, you didn't do anything for me to think that. That was depression lying.
Yeah.
Depression lies. Depression lies. And but I was so ashamed. I was so ashamed. I went and got help, and I told my friends, because I knew my friends didn't have that expectation that I was going to become a doctor or whatever. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I told my friends, and they contracted with me that I would get therapy,
Mm.
and so
Okay.
I did. And what helped me at that time was cognitive therapy,
Oh,
because
okay.
I just needed to stop those thoughts and rewrite them. I've done a lot of different therapies over the years, because that was when I was 18. I'm 62. That's a long time to be in
Mm-hmm.
therapy. So, but back then, the cognitive therapy helped me rewrite those thoughts and stop them and retrain my brain so I wouldn't be at risk of hurting myself.
Mm. Okay.
So, but yeah, that was pretty scary. It was scary when I started actually writing the suicide note and gathering the means, because I knew
Mm-hmm.
enough about suicide to know if you have the means and the a plan and all these things. I was like super high risk. I'm like, oh my goodness, it's not just in my head. I'm actually doing this. This is not
Right.
good. I need to see somebody right away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Have you ever had to step back from something that you really, really cared about, because your mental health needed you even more?
Um, I think the way my brain works is that I always reframe things as like that this was not what I was supposed to do,
Mm.
so
Mm-hmm.
that maybe like part of me, I think, always felt like I still was supposed to be a doctor, but part of me reframed it. Well, you actually did treat people as therapists,
Mm-hmm.
you know, or, um, or, in the moment, it might have been difficult. In the moment, some of the things were difficult that I had to do or change. Some of the changes, like I would look at my life and think, oh gosh, why I was a legal assistant. Then I was a psychotherapist, and then I went into commercial real estate. Like that is so off. Like I'm so flaky. I
Mm-hmm.
do something, I burn out, and then I do something out and I burn out. And
Yeah.
each time I go up high and then I crash. But what's interesting, like in the midst of it, it might be like, what's wrong with me?
Mm-hmm.
You know? But in retrospect, this is the benefit of being old. In retrospect, and hanging in there, getting help. In retrospect, when my parents were going through the thing with dementia, all of a sudden, everything I'd been through, studying law as an undergraduate, legal studies major, and being a legal assistant, being a psychotherapist with, um, and being in therapy and working in real estate, I understood all the issues we had to deal with, basically. Like I had the vocabulary to talk to the doctors about the dementia. I had the
Mm-hmm.
vocabulary to talk to and other health issues. I had the vocabulary to talk to, um, about the legal stuff around my parents and having dementia and us now making decisions for them and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. I had the discussion, I understood real estate in terms of understanding us just selling their house and stuff like that. Like
Right.
all of a sudden I'm like, wow, my life was preparing me for now.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I hadn't have gone through all that, I wouldn't have the knowledge I have now to be able to deal with these different issues. And it would be so overwhelming, because it's overwhelming already to have parents with dementia.
Right. Oh,
So to have
absolutely.
both of them had dementia.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, we were able to sell their house and pay for memory care,
Mm-hmm.
which is outrageously expensive.
I can only imagine.
Um, yeah. So, but luckily their house paid for it. And and so
Mhm.
and so but so I'm able to like go back over my life and say, well, it was meaningful. There was reasons. And I don't know if there really are reasons. It's just the way I've reframed it. I believe in reframing things as there's purposeful, that my life is purposeful and that these things have happened purposefully. And as long as my life has purpose,
Mhm.
but the purpose is another should
Yeah.
sometimes too.
Yeah. Yep, I agree with you there.
But I
Um,
do believe that my life has purpose. And in that way, and I think that it's redeeming in some way.
mhm.
Like even doing this, right? We're doing a
Sure.
purposeful activity.
Absolutely. Sure. So, I think we're gonna wrap it up pretty soon, but this question I haven't stuck with it as much as I would have liked to, but it was a question that I had kind of wanted to ask all of my guests. Being that the show is called Unfinished Conversations. Um, what is the one story that you haven't ever told, but you think now might be time to finish the conversation?
Hmm. I'm so open, and in my book, I'm so open. I don't even know that I have unfinished conversations. I'm I know that with my mom, I had to be very careful. She was I don't know what her diagnosis is, but her behavior may be considered narcissistic. I don't like that diagnosis, but
Mm-hmm.
she never was able to accept blame for anything or see herself as doing something wrong or apologize for anything. And so I was never able to be completely honest with her because of that, because she couldn't tolerate it. But I understood she wasn't like, as I got older and as I had, and because of my clinical background and because of my own experience, I understood it was her own anosognosia and it was a symptom of what she had, right?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't that she was purposefully abusive. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think she even knew that she
Yeah.
was abusive. I think it was outside of her ability to understand.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I had a conversation that I would want to have, it would be an honest conversation with my mom, a loving conversation, but always also honest about the effect that her abuse had on me and my sister and other people in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
She was extremely abusive at times.
Uh,
She was also loving. I mean, we loved her in spite of that.
right,
She
right.
wasn't all bad. Like she,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes when people describe people with narcissism, I'm like, you know, and or borderline. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I think the diagnoses have the wrong name and the wrong stigma attached.
Mm-hmm.
That we don't fully understand it and that they are brain disorders,
Mm-hmm.
and that we're blaming people for things they shouldn't be, even though the effect is negative on other people,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But if somebody has anosognosia, how much can you blame them
Mm-hmm.
if they can't? And that means not understanding and lack of insight. For those who don't know what anosognosia means, it means lack of insight, not being able to understand that what what you're doing or the effect it has, or that you have mental illness, you know. Um, and so I just don't think she ever was capable of understanding that she had ever done anything wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And that was extremely difficult as
Definitely.
a
Mm-hmm.
child and as a young adult, as an adult too.
Mm-hmm.
We had to protect ourselves from her and like plan accordingly. Like plan how we saw her so that we weren't hurt by her. And I, as a mother, it was always important to me to apologize, to acknowledge when I made mistakes, and to apologize to my son.
Mm-hmm.
So that even later as an adult, when he said, when you did this, it really hurt me, I can still say, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
You know, I can't change it. But he said, I used to be afraid of you. Like, it was just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And I'm like, because of my temper when I was symptomatic, like, and he would say, OFU when he was a little kid. And he's
Mhm.
just like, if he said, you effing B, and he used the words,
Mhm.
that just set me off. Like,
Right.
it would set me off. Later, as I got older, and that was like when he was very young and very ADHD and very impulsive, and we would get into it. And and I even slapped him a couple of times, which is not okay. It wasn't like as a punishment on the bottom. It was like whap,
Mm.
and it was out of anger. It was a reaction to
Mhm.
being furious that he was calling me an effing B.
Right.
And that's not okay. That's not okay. And it's terrible that my son was afraid of me because of my temper.
Mhm.
And my temper was part maybe just who I am, but I think it was largely my bipolar disorder
Yeah.
and not being completely, being in a situation of frustration of raising this child that triggered me.
Mhm. For
So, but we
sure.
did go to therapy together, to this psychiatrist together, and tried to deal
That's
with
good.
this and tried to
That's
make
good.
sure I didn't do it.
And you did whatever you could to make him understand. So, that's all
Yeah,
you can do.
yeah, yeah. And I would also, like, when he'd like think that something was abusive or whatever, I would, like, one time I slapped him and he turned his head, so I cuffed his ear. And I was really good. I was a tennis player, so my slap was probably a little harder than it should be.
I'm
So
sorry that I'm
I
laughing at that.
it's okay. No, that's totally. Yeah, I mean, I was a good slapper. So I took him to the pediatrician or to the family practitioner and had his ears examined. And I said, Matthew, tell him what happened. You should tell a doctor if you're ever hit. You should tell somebody. You can tell your doctor. You can tell your psychiatrist. I want you to know. You can tell. It's not a secret. So he said what happened, and I said, okay, now tell him why that happened. Tell him what you said before I did that. I said, it's not okay that I did that. I admit it's not okay. It wasn't a discipline. I reacted out of anger. And it's not okay to react out of anger. It wasn't discipline. So tell the doctor, and the doctor was a Howard educated African American doctor. And the African American culture has a thing about respecting mothers.
Hmm.
And I said, tell the doctor what you said. And he said, I called her an effing B. And the doctor said, oh, if you were in my house, you've gotten a lot worse than that. There's no way you could have called my wife an effing B. No. And I knew, and I'm like, I just want you to know does not rise to the level of abuse. It was not okay, but it does not rise to the level of abuse, and that you always should feel like you can tell your psychiatrist, therapist, or doctor something
Right.
like this.
Yeah.
So
Well, this has been absolutely fascinating. I love talking to you. You've always got the best stories.
thank you. Thank you.
I really appreciate you coming on. I know we had some trouble getting ourselves in a schedule, but we did it, and we did a good job today. So thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for coming on, and I really appreciate it, and I hope that if I'm still going in a few months from now, you'll come back on and grace me with your presence.
Oh, I would love it. I would love it.
Okay. Awesome.
We'll
Thank you
find
so
other
much.
topics to talk about.
Absolutely. So
Okay.
we will. Absolutely. So thanks so
Okay.
much.
Okay.
All right, take care.
All right. Okay.
Have
You
a good
too.
week.
Bye-bye. You
Bye-bye.
too.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
This has been Unfinished Conversations. Thanks for tuning in. Catch us next Friday for a new episode.